Finally, YouTube works. I'm happy. It didn't work last time. And yes, the LinkedIn Live is also working. Good. And let's check TikTok. Okay. All right, TikTok is also working. Brilliant. Okay, good news, John. Today, technology is on our side. Everything is working so far. I've checked YouTube, I've checked TikTok, I've checked LinkedIn, and I've checked Facebook. Everything is working.
Recording in progress.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Just drop a comment if you're here so we can see you're here. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. Just drop one comment so I can see you. Okay, we're going to start now because I believe you're already there. I can see people joining on TikTok. I can also see people. Let me just quickly check on Facebook. Okay, and we are going to check now our LinkedIn. Yes, thank you so much. I can see the comments from Kiran and Sarah. You're on LinkedIn. I can see you. If you are on any other channel, maybe I'm not able to see you right now, but as we will proceed, I'll be able to see the comments will start appearing. So I'll be able to answer your questions and I'll be able to talk to you and reply to your comments as well. Thank you so much for joining. This is Unbox with SG, and you know that every Tuesday we sit here, I invite some guests, and we talk about different matters. I wouldn't call them topic because that's not the right word. We talk about different matters, matters that matter, matters that can actually make an impact, matters that need attention, matters that are raising concerns. So we have been talking about this for about 3 months, I guess, if I'm not wrong. And John and I started this series for leadership purely because we thought there was so much that we could discover for leadership. And we started it 3 weeks ago. Today is our fourth week, and next week, Tuesday, we will be wrapping up this series, leadership series. But then we are starting another exciting series together. Um, Let me formally welcome all of you. And as you know, today we're talking about empathy. You know what? The biggest leadership myth is that empathy means being soft. People hear empathetic leader and immediately picture someone handing out tissues in the boardroom or in the staff room like it's a group therapy session. No, that is not empathy. That is poor HR planning. So if you are familiar with a scene like that, please remember that is because your HR is not organized enough. That is why it is happening. Empathy isn't weakness, and we will go deeper into it. I know John has got a few comments on that as well, and we'll get deeper into it. It's awareness in action. It's reading the room before the room reads you. It's seeing the storm behind someone's silence and reporting or responding with sense, not sarcasm. So, welcome back to Unboxed with SG. We have peeled through self awareness, we have learned self regulation, we have explored motivation last time, and now we dive into the heart of leadership, empathy. And yes, as I said earlier, my partner in truth, John Berry, is here again. Shoes off, mugs refilled, ready to make me look slightly less dramatic and slightly more human. John, how are you this week?
Good. Thank you so much for having me back. I've been having an absolute blast on these podcasts.
Thank you for being here, John. And I'm so excited that we will be doing another series, which I'm not going to tell the audience at the moment. Maybe we can engage them in a little bit of, uh, you know, treasure hunt. Maybe we can ask them if they will guess what would be our next series dedicated to. Maybe there will be a prize for them. Who knows? So I think I have to be creative about it. So I will definitely get back. And the post will be up on my Facebook account, on my LinkedIn account, on my company Beyond the Box LinkedIn account, and on the official channel on YouTube for Beyond the Box, plus Beyond the Box on Instagram. So these are all the places. Oh, and I forgot TikTok and TikTok too. So we will be placing a post asking you if you know what we are going to unpack next, John and I. after the next week. Next week is the last of leadership series, and then we are thinking of something very exciting the following week. So we will be asking you, and if you do guess it right, there might be some surprises for you in our pocket. So let's see what you are going to get and what if we can actually get you engaged. Okay. Um, you know what? If empathy was an exercise, it will be more like yoga: stillness, calm, composure, stretch, and strength. But that's not how leaders usually see it. Leaders see it as sprint race. So it's just they hear the shot and then they just start running. No looking here and there. That's how I feel when I put empathy in my mind and I take help from my imagery. This is how I see it. It's yoga. But that's not what I then see when I see the leaders, including myself, to be honest. When I'm on the ground, it's exactly the same as I described: running around, going for one problem, dealing with the other, finding solution for this, finding solution for that, and it doesn't feel like yoga at all. So today we are going to unpack empathy layer by layer, not as a buzzword, but as a leadership superpower, the kind that builds trust, diffuses conflict, and reminds people that leaders aren't robots. We just pretend better than other people. So, John, what is your take on it before we start with our very first headline? What's your take on overall on empathy?
Empathy for me is probably the strongest leadership skill a leader can have. Being able to put yourself into someone else's place, what they're going through, what they're feeling. Walking into a room, as you said before, about reading a room, when you can tell as a leader, an experienced leader, how your team is reacting, how you see them functioning amongst each other. When you are an empathetic leader and you're able to spot that, and you sit down with one or two employees and talk to them about, hey, tell me what's going on, making the time for them, you're not only showing your empathy, but you're also showing courage, because a lot of leaders don't like to show their empathy. As you and I said earlier, we've talked about this before today's podcast opening, is there are a lot of leaders out there, and I know a number of them, that don't look at empathy as a strong leadership skill. They look at it as a step back, a weakness. Well, you're not going to keep things going. Actually, you are, and you're probably going to keep things moving better and retaining your employees than someone who is not an empathetic leader. I would rather be an empathetic leader taking a little extra time. I'll be able to make that time up once I get everybody on the same page. So showing that you have the skills to be a great listener, that you have, as a leader, that you have a heart, that you actually care beyond what's going on in their professional life. It could be a professional problem, but if you have employees that don't have somebody that can talk about their personal life and you can see that it's affecting their professional life, your first responsibility is to get down to what the root problem is.
Right.
And when you're showing your empathy, your team around you is going to see that, and that's a good thing, because you'll be labeled with a good labeling. Don't know really a proper word for that. That's why I said labeling. Is if your team and other leaders see you as someone who shows great empathy, compassion, then you're the person that they're going to want to work with. They're going to want to be on your team. And when I'm having a conversation with someone, I can tell if this person's empathetic or not.
So
and
true.
It's not just what they say, but by their reactions to what I'm saying.
So true. So, John, as you know, we are talking about the very first um, headline under empathy, which is the misunderstanding of empathy. Let's start here because empathy isn't feeling sorry for people. If you are leading with pity, you are not being empathetic. You are being um, I don't know what word I should use. Probably uh, condescending with better manners, but you're not really being empathetic. This is how I feel. John, what's your take on it?
Uh, Thank you. Those both words that you just used were perfect. About if you are somebody that shows pity, if you are being condescending, they are quite the opposite of being what an empathetic leader is. And I should ask you this next question. As a leader, tell me what you do when you walk in and you can see that your team is, it's a word I want to use, a little off kilter. You know that things aren't right. So when you walk in and you're on a time crunch, you've got plans, your next project is supposed to be finished, but you can see something's wrong. Now, if you leave it unaddressed, do you think it's saving you time or it's adding time without getting to the bottom of it?
Okay, that's a very, I would say that's a very important question, John. And I'm glad you asked because usually we don't talk about these things. Now, personally, if I do see that the vibe is off, things are not working out because obviously people have limitations and maybe they need a little bit of help and coaching. But the very first thing that I would do, that's the kind of leader I am. And sometimes I do I'm being told that it shouldn't be this way, but I do give time off. So if there is someone who is trying to deliver some targets or some goals and is not able to do that, and the timeline is not working out for this person, I would leave that person alone for some time, just for this person to be ready. Because when you are showing empathy, just like feedback, if the person is too emotional, your empathy is useless. It's not going to be meaningful because the other person's brain is blocked. Maybe I am saying it because this is how I am. So I'm empathizing with the other person. Not everybody will respond the same way, obviously. Some people are immediately ready for the feedback, some people immediately want that kind of acknowledgement of their emotion, and some want to be left alone. Some dread that moment that you will actually start calling them and you will say, hey, what's wrong with you, and thinking that you are actually empathizing when actually you're not. Because if my boss is doing this to me, I wouldn't consider that empathy at all. So I usually give a little bit of pause. Work is important, project is important, but so is mental health and well-being. You are trying to separate the problem from the person. So if my team member is struggling with the limitations, then it's my duty, I would say, as a dutiful leader, I must give that opportunity to myself to separate the person from the trouble or from the limitation that person is going through. When you are not talking about it too much and you give that pause of 1 or 2 or maybe 3 days, sometimes people might need a 1 week pause in between, fine. Depending on how much time you can actually allow for that to happen, you you let that person disconnect with that situation that is taking their motivation away, that is putting them down, pinning them down to the ground. You take leave them alone just to remove themselves from all of that surrounding and environment, and then you start fresh. And this time when I go back, I've seen that people are more ready and more well rested, more reflected on their own situation, more open to feedback or criticism, more open to, okay, I should be the part of the solution. Why am I always going back with the problem? And understanding the point of leaders as well. I think that timing is the key. And as I said, you have to be careful that you differentiate that duration between the people, because if you are prolonging it or if you're dragging that silence phase for too long, this can also put that person under some kind of unrest. So you do make sure that the person can understand you're not you're separating the problem from the person. It's not personal. Okay, that's where empathy actually works out properly, because now you know there are good days, there are bad days. There are days when I'm fiery, when I want to change the world and I want to achieve everything, and then there are days when I don't even want to get out of my bed. Come on, everybody has those days. And that understanding, I think, would be empathy. I don't know if I reached the point that you wanted to hear from me, but for me, this is where I stand.
You did, and one of the things that I'm always curious about is when you're when you're not an empathetic leader and you have employees that are looking at you concerned and for themselves, and they're not standoffish, but they're afraid to ask for help. And then that becomes a whole other issue. It's like your behavior is stopping people from coming to you and trying to clear up a problem. If that's how you present yourself as a leader, someone that doesn't care about their employees. And not only do you want your company to do well, but as a leader, you'd be crazy not to want your own people to do well. Because when they're doing well, they're not only making you look good, they're making the company look good.
So true. You know, I
So
had,
our own people should be afraid to ask for help.
yeah, no, I think we should give them that time where they can ask for help. That, listen, it's not about your job, but at the end of the day, I think explaining it to people in a way, John, this is how I was laid off. I found it out within an hour that, we are letting you go because we are restructuring the entire company and we're downsizing, and there's no easy way. Sorry, we understand your problem, but we'll let you go. Okay, that's not empathy to me. Empathy to me would have been that I was given this this information at least in advance so I could plan accordingly. That because companies never plan within 1 hour that they're going to restructure because of downsizing or whatever is happening. So for me, I think that that incident that happened to me, that made me understand better how empathy should work. So it's not that you would continue running a bleeding company that is not making any profits. That's not what I'm saying. So if you really want people to leave, you plan it accordingly. You have your projections, you have your numbers, you be honest. You don't have to sit and cry in front of your team that, oh, I am not able to pay your salary. But you can actually show them some projections so they can see it coming. And to me, that is empathy. Giving other people margin to plan as per their potential is empathy to me. So I know what you're saying, where you're coming from, and I know what has happened to me in the past, and that has prepared me better for being an empathetic leader. So there were times when I would be giving immediate feedback to my team members, and they might feel embarrassed, or but I'm thinking, yeah, but I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Yes, feedback has to be given, and it has to be given in a timely manner. But at the same time, you do leave the person, because at the end of the day, that is a person, and you're dealing with humans here, you're not dealing with machines. So empathy is important. If you were dealing with machines, you never need to have empathy in you, obviously. And that's how I feel about it. Real empathy is understanding without absorbing. It's listening to understand, not to rescue. And here is the tool I use, the empathy triangle. There are 3 points that I usually look at, and John, I would need your feedback on these 3 points, how you see them in becoming an empathetic leader. The first one is perspective. Ask, what might this look like through their eyes? And then emotion. Ask, what might they be feeling right now? And then number 3 is boundary. Remind yourself, it's not my job to fix it, it's my job to understand it. You see what I'm saying here? So if your company is going through bad phase and you really want to let go of people, you need to understand that you don't need to fix it, because that's where you have reached now. That's the solution. You don't have to fix it. It's beyond fixing. But what you can do is understand how to prepare your team for what's coming forward. That's my take. Again, I'm relating it with a personal experience because I thought people will resonate. If I'm taking a bookish example that I read from somewhere, maybe I won't be able to relate to that example. And as a result, my viewers will not be able to relate to that. John, what do you say about the role of perspective, emotion, and boundary in empathy?
For perspective, putting myself in their position, whatever they're going through. I think obviously longer term employees have a different perspective than someone who doesn't have a lot of time there, might be younger, and they can look at it as, well, hey, I can go someplace else. It's not going to be a big deal for me. I can start over now. Where someone who has maybe a number of years of service, they're looking at it as, I've given you everything. And now you're taking this away from me. This meant everything to me. Emotion. When we're talking about, if we're still going under the same premise here in regards to being let go, someone's emotion. Emotion is something that is never to be discounted. Everyone has feelings. Some people, well, a lot of people display feelings a lot different from others. You can have someone who immediately is going to snap right back at you because they just don't get it. They don't understand. How could you let me go? Why did you let this happen? And the blame immediately gets shifted to you. As you said, if you're preparing somebody beforehand as to letting them see the numbers, so it's kind of getting them ready for what they're going to be going through. And emotion can be, I don't want to use the word downplay because that actually sounds really awful. But I'll use me for an example. Do I try and put on a brave face? Absolutely. I'm going to say, let's see, wow. Back in 2013, the organization that I was working with, they were going through a number of changes. And they let a ton of people go. And I was one of them. I had been there 7 years. I absolutely loved what I was doing. And the warning that we got was people from New York City are coming up to our office and they're going to be letting people go. And they were there for 2 or 3 days and calling us down one by one. And that was our warning. We didn't know if we were on the list, but once you got the phone call at your desk, hey, can you come see us in blah, blah, blah room, you knew that was it. So yeah, when my name got called, people in my office looked and I went, here I go. And I went down and I sat there, I listened to what was said, and I knew the people very well, and I had nothing against them. They had a job to do. I got it. I understood it, but it still doesn't make it easier. And then they want you to sign the paperwork right there on the spot. And I said, I can't do that yet. You need to let me take this home. I said, I will come back tomorrow, but I need a night to think about this. And which I think they were kind of surprised because I think everybody else was just signing away, which they let me do because I needed time to digest it. So that was where I was able to give myself more of a sense of calm because I took the time to prepare myself. And far as boundaries are concerned, wow, that's really a good question. It really is. I'm not even sure if I can answer that one. How you would set a boundary for that?
See, let me throw an idea your way. So,
Okay.
what I'm thinking here, because when there are empathetic leaders who feel so much for their team members that they lose plot, of why they were actually leaders in the first place. So I am a school leader, for example. I'm a leader because my everything, every decision that I have to take has to revolve around my students. Okay, my students are my priority. So if any decision of mine is not helping out my students, then that's a bad decision as an educational leader, because I'm not just a random leader, I'm an educational leader. And my services are for my students, for the next generation, for the children. So now comes my team, because my team is my tool to deliver that vision of mine, that I want to serve my students and I want them to be ready for the next century or for the next 15 years or whatever my goal is. And I cannot achieve it alone. It is my team is my tool. Now there are two types of leaders. Now there's one type of leader who is very focused towards the goal, which is my goal is to just serve my students, and my tools are just my tools, and I don't really have to be emotionally involved with my tools. They If they give me what I want, good, there are rewards for them, um, based on HR policy. If they don't give me what I want for my students, the results, the academic results, the accreditation, the school improvement, the inspection rating, there is a long list. So if they don't give you that, then they would say, I don't have place for you. I'll replace you. Fair enough. That's one type of leader. Then there's another extreme on the other end of the continuum, okay, which I have seen, which is a very overly empathetic leader. This leader is so empathetic that this leader can actually hear the team talking in his or her ears when he goes to bed, because he's intuitive. That's a strength, it's not a weakness. But what is happening? It is draining that leader. That leader is losing focus. So remember, the focus was that the results for our students have to be good. Now, this teacher, if you fire this teacher will not be able to get another job. Or will she or he be able to get another job or not? They can hear all that loud and clear in their head. So what is happening? That, and plus they know this teacher comes from a broken family. So you are so empathetic, feeling their pain all the time, projecting it onto you, that you are not even able to give them the dialogue that needs to happen between you and your team member. And as a result, you lose the entire plot of making your students benefit from this entire exercise. So what is happening? This teacher is there, you're not able to give feedback to them, you're not able to help them, you're not able to coach them, you're not able to mentor them, because you're too burdened by their pain, whatever that pain is, or whatever that pain could be as a result of that feedback. So you're not doing anything to improve that situation, but you are being empathetic and you're keeping him you're keeping that teacher until the point comes where either that teacher leaves, or you know somebody from outside comes and fires that person. So that's another extreme, that's another side of the I've been on both ends, by the way. So I think the draining here means when you are overly empathetic and you forgot to set boundaries, and you lost plot. So that's how I understand it, that you gotta have a balance somewhere. Sometimes you have to take those tough decisions, and sometimes you have to be empathetic towards somebody's situation. Listen, I'm not ready, or I will not find a job. This is just middle of the academic year, nobody's going to give me a job, all the good jobs are gone already. So if you will fire me now, is there any way that I can stay for another 3 months on probation, and you check my performance? Those are the boundaries you have to play with. But you have to remember, as a leader, how you have to run that dialogue, because if you don't know how to run that dialogue, if you don't know how to play with those boundaries, then you will be either on this side or on that side of the spectrum, to be honest. So this was my thought. John, you tell me what you think now.
It is great to be an empathetic leader, and I consider myself an empathetic leader, and I believe you're an empathetic leader. But also, too, when setting those boundaries, you can't make it to the point where people are wondering, how did you get to where you are? Because you still have a job to do.
Correct.
And when you have to give that bad news, you have to be strong enough to give it in a way where you're not only able to give them the facts as to, look, right now we're moving in a different direction, is to show them, and even if you can look at, you brought up about people's performance. If you can look at somebody's performance, that can be really a big factor in where your company's headed, and be able to be able to sit and talk with them and say, I know this isn't your greatest strength. And if you don't think that, we can improve this in this area, I can really try and help you find a place that will be really good for you, where you can thrive. And then actually make them feel good and a little excited about, all right, there could be light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe not here, but at somewhere else.
True.
So I think that's a great way to still keep your boundary, but also put it in a way to people that maybe this just wasn't the right fit.
Correct.
And I will do my best to help you.
I call it counseling somebody out of the job, to be honest, but in such a loving way that, it works for them and it works for the business as well. Now that's gold. Empathy doesn't drain you when you remember boundaries are compassion's bodyguards. Because the empathy without boundaries isn't leadership, it's emotional leakage. You're leaking and you gotta stop. So that's why your boundaries are there. Okay. And this is very, very important. You cannot be so emotionally heavy, burdened all the time that you cannot take the right decisions, because then your decisions are always taken out of emotions and not out of logic. And that is not going to help you in whatever position you are, or wherever you are a leader. You could be a leader in a medical firm, you could be a leader in a corporate, you could be a leader in a school or a university, you could be a leader anywhere, you could be a CEO of a company. The thing is, a boundary is basically bringing a balance back to you, and that's why we said it is very, very important. So this was the first heading that we were unpacking for empathy, and it was the misunderstanding about empathy. The second heading that we are going to unpack now is reading the room. um, it's an art basically, and I feel that it's been lost. There was a time when we used to see leaders who would walk into a room and they will be very poised and they will take a minute, look around with that smile, not a poker face. I don't like poker faces unless you are, in a situation where you really need it. So they're warm, they're welcoming, but at the same time, they're quiet, they're wise, they are very poised. Um, so they're reading the room, they're giving themselves a minute or two just to read the room before getting engaged with anything. Most leaders think they are good at it because they can sense tensions. No, sensing tension isn't emotional intelligence, it's common sense. I don't think so. That people, when they say, oh, I actually sensed it because I was emotionally intelligent. Good, but this is actually common sense. When you walk, sometimes when you walk into the lunchroom and you see your colleagues sitting there and they were talking about something, and then as soon as you stepped in, they just got quiet. It happens, right? It happens to everyone. So that's common sense. It doesn't require very high level of EQ. um, I don't think so, but maybe John will disagree. So let's hear from John about that. So what about reading the room, John?
Everything you just described when you started this next section is perfect in regards to reading the room. You don't want to come off, as you said, with a poker face, but sometimes, as you said, depending on where you are, you might need to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you're brand new, you kind of want people to guess. What is he like? What is she like?
True.
Because you're going to be able to get more of, by them not being able to read you right away, you're going to get more of, they're going to let their guard down a little. with their behavior, and you're going to see what your team is really like, or the people around your team. So I think being able to read a room is super important. It's a great, phenomenal leadership skill, because too, when you're going in to give a speech to somebody, to a group, not to someone, to a group, you have to know as much as you can about who you're going to be walking in to talk to. Not just, and I'm not talking about you just knowing your subject matter, you have to know the type of people that you're speaking to. And that's really important as a leader, not just in business, but I think personally as well. We all have different interactions with different people every day. You as an educator, I'm sure you deal with that every day, and plus two, the projects you're currently working on, as to, I need to let these people know that, yes, I'm the person that you come to when something's wrong, but don't automatically think that you're going to get your way either when you're talking to me, because the buck does stop with you. And they have to be able to know that the person that they're speaking to is decisive, is clear, is someone that can build trust with their team. So reading the room is so important in so many different areas of leadership. And I want to emphasize that again, not just professionally, but personally as well.
Thanks, John. Um, there is something that I always tell the new leaders if I'm ever coaching them or mentoring them. Reading the room is about noticing what is not being said. The shift in tone, the silence that means something, the body language that screams louder than words. That's why I train leaders on SCAN method. And I want to share it with everyone here. The SCAN method is you scan faces very quickly. Who looks checked out? Who is engaged? Check context. Are people reacting to you or the situation? Are they reacting to you or the situation? Now, I repeat it again. Earlier, I said, if you remember, that you have to separate the performance from the person. It's the same thing that we usually teach teachers. When a child is misbehaving in the classroom, we always say, separate the child from behavior. The child is not bad. The behavior was not desirable. That's how you rephrase it. And when you rephrase it that way, things change. So it is exactly the same way when you look at your team, you're looking at them and you're thinking, what are they reacting to right now? What's the matter? And is it a personal matter of somebody? Is it someone's hidden agenda, or is it a real matter that company need to pay attention to? Okay. And then you address that. You don't address people, you address the matter. And that's called checking the context. Okay. If you ever have to address a person because of what the person is doing, there's always a hidden agenda, there's always office politics being played by this person, there's always gossip, there's always toxic vibe coming out of everything this person is saying. Then you remember, if you're addressing a matter, always address it publicly. But when you are addressing a person, always do it privately. That's also another sign of you being an empathetic leader. It's very important to understand the difference between the two. Okay? Ask curious questions. That's the third thing. So I said scan method. Now let me repeat again so you can remember. S is for scan faces. C is for check context. And then A is for ask curious questions. So basically, these questions will be fitting in, as in you are restating their emotions. So for example, what's your take on this? Instead of saying, everyone okay? Okay, this is how we're going to do it. Instead of saying that, you ask for their opinion. So you say, what's your opinion? What's your take? What's your idea? How do you see it? What can you shed any light on it? These are the phrases that will help other people to share their ideas with you. And those are called asking curious questions, not just any questions, curious questions, because those people need to see you being curious and being interested in what they will say. That's why I'm saying not just any question, but a curious question. And then the last thing is N, which is normalize feedback. Remember, I talked about feedback? So make emotional honesty the culture, not the exception. It needs to be your culture. Somebody is drowning in bad performance, you pick that person out of that puddle and you start talking to that person. Say, hey, I see you using the same pattern over and over again and then complaining that you're not able to meet your targets. I gave you this task, we changed the dynamics, we changed the variation. You said you needed this support, I gave you that support. You said give me these many hours, I gave you those many hours. You said if I do this, I can provide that. I heard you. We did that. We did it in every single way you thought you would be successful, and you're still not delivering it. Now what? What next? So that honesty and emotion, this is actually an emotional honesty. That emotional honesty is going to position you as an empathetic leader. So when it comes to the time when you have to fire somebody or let go of someone, you've been having that dialogue with that person frequently, that they cannot say, but you never told me that I wasn't good enough. You see, you will not have to face that if you've been giving that feedback to them. So this is called scan method, and you can always use that scan method, especially when it comes to reading the room. Leaders who read the room save their teams from weeks of passive aggressive emails. That's the best that you can do as a leader. You save them from writing those passive aggressive emails. I trust you are well. I trust my email finds you well. I mean, what the hell? What do you even mean by that? John, any comment on that?
No, I always laugh when you just said that about the emails. I've seen that before, and they just addressed it exactly how you did. They were like, "What is that?" In regards to, I hope this email finds you well. Okay, good. It found me
Yeah,
well. Now what?
it did find me well.
Thank you. Thank you for sending it.
True.
But as you said too, asking the curious questions, and then if you're being empathetic and you have to talk to somebody about their job performance, there is a way which you know very well, and how you address those. And I'm pretty sure we've both heard leaders address things with people that needed help on their job performance in a way where these people didn't even want to come back. All they wanted to do was like climb under their desk and not be seen for the next week or two.
True.
But sitting down, as you said, not in front of everybody, sitting down as a one-on-one and saying, hey, tell me what's going on. I think you're having a little problem. Instead of, don't make them guess. Say to them when you know, and they know, because you're treating them as an adult, as a professional. Hey, I think you're having a little problem here. Tell me what's going on. How can I help you work through it? That's better than hearing, all right, hey, one more time, this screws up, you're gone.
Yeah, true.
Because there are leaders out there that do that exactly. You're not helping me. I'm going to have to transfer you out of either another department, or you're going to have to go. You don't fit into our new culture here. You're going to have to leave. All you're doing with somebody then is literally petrifying them to even make a decision. If I heard that coming out of a meeting, I would immediately be going home, making sure my resume was up to date, and making sure that, okay, I got some prospects here where I can get out of here.
True. And honestly, nothing screams bad leadership like meetings where the team members are nodding in public, but then they go in private to their colleagues and they explode. That's the bad meeting. That's the bad vibe. It's because you did not read the room properly and you did not scan. You didn't use the scan method. So Try that. I believe that will help you if you're a new leader, even if you are a seasoned leader. These are the tips and tricks that I learned very late in my leadership journey. So there is never too late, you know. If you've been a leader for last 15 years, you will still be learning something new every day. And I always say that if you are thinking that you are beyond learning and you have learned everything and you're so knowledgeable, rest in peace. That's all I can say. Because without
I did
learning,
want to
there is no life. Go on, John.
I did want to give you one more example about that. Now, most of the time when we're sitting with our team, or sitting one-on-one or two-on-one, most of the time we're sitting across from people. Now, you're kind of setting a boundary there. I am the boss, you are the employee. You work for me. I had a boss years ago, and I actually admired him for doing that. He knew our team was having some difficulties with another supervisor, and we called him into a meeting, which he knew what the subject matter was. And when he walked in, we all sat on one side of the table, and we were all like this. We saw him come in the door. We were waiting like this now, focused on, okay, he's going to come and sit down. And he walked over and he sat down on our side of the table with us. And he said, "What's going on?" And that's just how he did it. And it just set a calmness for everybody, where everybody just felt free to open up just by that one little move. We're like, okay, he's one of us. Mm-hmm. We know he's our boss, but he is actually concerned with what we're going through.
True.
And I thought how he set the tone was honestly was perfect. Mm-hmm. It was something I did not expect at all.
And you know, I have to tell everybody one more time what John is saying. All it takes is asking, "You seem quieter than usual. What's going on?" That's all it takes, to be honest. And the people will be honest to you. They will come back to you. They will talk to you. If they don't want to talk in public, they'll come back and they will talk to you in your office, or you can take them for a coffee. I know one of my bosses, and I loved her for that. Every time she wanted to talk to me about something that was a bit emotionally heavy, she would always take me out for dinner or for a cup of coffee. And I absolutely loved it. I loved it so much that I want to carry it forward as a legacy, as something that I really I liked it. And I thought, who are those people? When I was a young leader, there were people who were like, "No, stay distant. Don't come closer to your team because then they'll see you as a weak person. No, never have lunch with them because then they will see you as a weak leader. Oh no, you arrange parties for them, pizza parties, this party, that party, but don't be a part of that party. Come make an appearance and then go away." And well, because this is how I was trained initially, this is how I did. And I thought, no, something's missing. This is not working out. That's not right. That's not the genuine connection. That's not helping in achieving the goals that I have. So when I got exposed to this leader, who would always, whenever she will feel that I was having limitations, or I was failing, or I needed a little bit of coaching, or I needed a little bit of redirection, she would always make an effort. And it wasn't like, let's go to a 5-star fancy cafe. No, it was like, oh, there's a cafe on the rooftop of our office. Let's just go sit there. It's like just the outside of your office boundary, whatever that means to you, whatever is convenient, whatever is easy. Just grab that employee, sit there, talk to them over a cup of tea or coffee, whatever you like. And make them realize where things are going. I think that would be a more human dialogue than any other dialogue that you would ever provide to someone. And you will see people genuinely getting motivated, people genuinely finding solutions of their own problems, performance problems, but also for the company's progress as well. So thank you, John, for sharing your wisdom on that. We have uncovered already the misunderstanding about empathy. And then the second heading we were unpacking was reading the room. And now we are unpacking the third one, which is empathy in conflict. That is going to be fun. And at this stage, I want all my participants to please start asking questions in your comments. I'm reading your comments, by the way. But today, as I said, I was like, how come that today technology is on my side and everything is working? Well, the comments on the dashboard where it collects the comments from every portal where I am live and it gives me on one dashboard. That dashboard is not working. I just saw and I got worried. But we have solution for that. So I'll be on my phone. I'll be going on everywhere I'm live and I'll pick your questions. But start posting questions right now because we are very quickly we are going to be wrapping up this session. So we have very little time left and I want you to get engaged. And thank you for writing all those comments. As soon as I grab my phone, I will start reading those comments again. So now we are talking about empathy in conflicts, right? Here's where empathy gets real. Conflict. Because when emotions run high, empathy is usually the first thing to leave the room. When you are very angry or when you want to give everything that is on your mind back to that person, empathy exited, empathy left the chat. That's what happens, and that's where we don't want to be. What do you say, John? When the emotions are high, how to ensure that we are still holding on to empathy?
I think as a leader, if all of a sudden, if there's some, because you have triggers as well, we all do as leaders. So if there's something that's triggering you, let's go back to one of our earlier sessions. You need to be self-aware of it, and you need to self-regulate very quickly, because if you don't, as you said, there goes empathy, and there you go. You just lost trust. You just set your communication back. You could lose people, meaning you're not going to be able to retain them. So empathy is one of your strongest, if not the strongest skills you can have as a leader. And have I had to go and take a walk before I've addressed something before? Yeah, I have. And thought to myself, okay, I need to distance myself from this for like 15, 20 minutes to get myself calm so I can think clearly as to what I want to say. But yes, I've done it as well. It was the smartest thing to do.
Yeah.
Because as you said, we are all, as much as we all want to be a superhero, we're not. We make mistakes just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
But we want to come across to our people as clear, confident, caring. And that's what I want to be known for. But if I have that trigger that comes up, then I have to be smart enough to say to myself, this is not the right time to address this. As you said, plus two, knowing your audience. If it isn't just this person, if there's a group of people there, me showing how I feel right now is going to damage me in so many other areas. So I need to be smart about it.
John, I have a question for you. Okay, so Sarah, she's been regular on our leadership series. I see her every week. Thank you, Sarah, for being here one more time. And next Tuesday would be the last of this series, and then we will bring in another one, which I believe people would absolutely love. But we will leave it for you to guess what that is going to be, okay, as I said earlier. But now I'm going to read your question, Sarah. Sarah is the school principal, by the way, John. She's saying, in a world that often rewards competition over compassion, how can we bring empathy back into our classroom, workplace, or our daily lives? Where, because today is the world where competition is given preference over compassion. How can we bring empathy back into our lives?
Look, as you just very eloquently said, that competition is a huge part of our daily lives right now, and it is. And I don't think we're going to escape that. But as a leader, as a true leader, have some, okay, where, as you said, this is unboxed. This is about being real.
That's
Can
where
I
we
be
go.
competitive?
That's where we go off guard.
Yeah, can I be competitive? Absolutely too. But also, I'm a person that I want to get the job done. And if it's somebody on my team, that person isn't just making him or herself look good. They're also making me look good because they are a part of my team. Yes, is it nice to be the one that comes up with all the answers all the time? Sure. I'm the leader. I want everybody, hey, this is the guy they need to trust. This is the guy they need to go to. But also, too, I'm smart enough to pick out the best people to have work with me. And I think that takes a lot away from the competition aspect. And yes, can you have your own team members that are competitive with each other? Absolutely. But also, too, even if you have someone that has really brought the project home, not only are you acknowledging them, you acknowledge the people around them as well. To say, hey, so-and-so got us started here, but we could have not gotten this finished without everyone's involvement. So you still have to show in the compassion part that everybody contributed.
Yeah. John, there's another question here. I think that's stemming through the same. How can you be a leader that is empathetic but is not taken as a weak leader? How can we project it to other people? I think this is what they're trying to understand. Yeah, it is good that you want to be an empathetic leader, but then what if while you are being an empathetic leader, people are thinking you or taking you as a weak leader? So how do you position yourself in a way that the message is loud and clear that even though you are empathetic, you are not weak? How do you do that?
I want to go back. There's a couple of different answers here. One of them I want to go through is, one of the things we talked about today was reading the room. Now, as a leader, and I'm asking you this, but I'm also asking the person who asked the question, when you walk into a room, are you not only reading the room, or do the people know that when you walk into the room, you own that room? Meaning you are the leader and they know it. And being empathetic to somebody, being able to sit down and say, hey, it's, you can put it as simply as, tell me what's going on. People, you're being seen as not just empathetic. I've got a leader here that actually cares. But also, too, when he walks in the room, she walks in the room, I know that's the person that's in charge. That's the person I'm going to follow. So here, as you walk into your room and you have to give a presentation, they know who you are. They know your contributions. They know your leadership style. They know where you've led them from to where they're leading, from where you're leading them to. And you've earned people's respect because that you are showing somebody, not that just you're an educational leader, but you are someone who genuinely cares. That is showing empathy. That is showing leadership. That is not showing weakness at all.
True. There is something that I wanted to, again, I'm always coming back with those quick strategies, scan, tools, frameworks, and stuff like that. Not that I'm a big fan of those. Well, I call them frameworks or tools, but to be honest, you automatically tend to these things when you are in that situation. For example, when the emotions are running very high in a room, like people are so tense, it is supposed to be a very telling off kind of meeting. You take a pause, you let the emotional wave pass, you paraphrase, you say, what I hear you saying is, so you can show that you are listening, you are still in charge. So it's not that being empathetic takes that power away from you, it won't, because you are still moderating, you are still mediating. So that power is what will position you back in the room as a leader while you are still being empathetic. Um, and also shifting from emotion to solution. So, how can we fix this together? And so people don't look at you all the time for solutions. I always say that if your team Is 80% of the time is your if your team is always coming back to you for solutions, then there's fundamentally something wrong with your leadership. That's how I look at it. You can tell me whatever you want to tell me to justify that, but this is how I see it. A leader isn't there to give you the solutions. A leader's role is to bring you all together so you can contribute to find the solution of one problem in a different way, because of the backgrounds you're coming from, because of the different qualifications you're. So the leader's role is to bring you all together to find the solution. Leader's role is not to give you the solutions. Yes, when we are so experienced, for example, there is somebody who said, oh, Miss Seher, I am very um, you know worried because I've never used rubrics to assess students. I don't know how to work with rubrics. Solution: I can ask this person to go back and talk to ChatGPT to give a private tutoring coaching. You can do that, by the way. I'm telling all the viewers, you can actually ask ChatGPT in audio, tell, hey, ChatGPT, can you please tutor me or lecture on how to use rubrics effectively in the classroom? And it will actually give you a lecture, or it will tutor you. It will explain it to you exactly in the same way as I would do. That's saving my time, basically. But well, if you are still a big fan of me and you still want to come to me with a question, I can do two things. I can give you the same lecture or same tutoring coaching session, holding a rubric in hand and taking you through it, which ChatGPT can do it too. Or I can ask you to look into it. What is it that you don't understand? Have you not used it ever? Is that your fear? So actually unpacking the fear part of it, not the how part, but the why part. Why are you not getting it? So that would be more meaningful. And me being an empathetic leader, that will be more meaningful, you know, when I'm trying to help my team member, instead of actually giving a solution in their hands. Yeah, I can make a rubric for you once, but I'm not going to do it every day. That's not my job. I'm not taking the salary for that. You are, remember? So please remember, that's where your position of power is. When you know exactly what your role is and what your team role is, and why are you there in that leadership role. You're not in that leadership role to find solution for people. For that, you have a team and you pay them. Okay. And you need to make sure you give them ample opportunities that can help them gaining confidence in coming back with the solutions. Okay. So this is how I look this entire empathetic leadership model. It sounds simple, but it diffuses 90% of tension, to be honest, because empathy in conflict isn't about choosing sides, it's about choosing sense. And you're not agreeing with them, you are acknowledging them. Sometimes, they'll give you a solution, and that solution, as a seasoned leader, you can clearly see it's not going to help. So you're not disagreeing with them or you're not agreeing with them, you're acknowledging, saying, hey, that sounds interesting. Oh, that's a brilliant idea. However, let's look when you have a doubt and you know it won't work, because you're a seasoned leader, remember? But you also have to give them courage and confidence to come back with solutions. So, in order to do that, you will run an exercise which is called pros and cons. So, on one column, like John has in his background, the flip chart, I'll use that. I'll never leave a chance of using flip charts. So, I will use the flip chart. I will have two columns there. One is pros and one is cons. Why should we do it and why we shouldn't do it? And once a list of why we should do is longer than why we shouldn't, we will do it. But if your list of we shouldn't do it is longer, then that means it's not a good solution, right? So there are strategies, there are ways to still keep your position strong, but at the same time do what you gotta do as a leader, which is redirecting your team. That's why you are there. So if you are still thinking that, oh, as a leader everybody should come to me for solutions, then you are in the wrong job. It's not for you. Sorry for breaking it to you. John, what's your take on that?
When all is said and done, I want to be known. I'm thinking about this whole talk today. when all is said and done, I want to be known as an empathetic leader. And yes, all what the questions that we heard in regards to compassion and competitiveness, yeah, we're all not going to escape that. But also, too, you can frame it for yourself in a different way. You can be competitive. You can be compassionate. You can be empathetic. But you can also you can have all those qualities and still be a strong leader. There's nothing wrong with competitiveness. You want to be compassionate. You want to be empathetic. You want to be the leader that people come to, but also know that you're the person that gets the job done. You're also the person who I want to be on their team because I can see that person can help me grow. I can actually look at my career and say, you just don't automatically become a leader. I've picked different parts of people that I've been around over the years and saw what worked for them and tried to put it in what I do, but my way, not their way, because that's what suits them. Mm-hmm. But a certain behavior pattern, I've made it my own. And that's done me well over the years. And I'll keep doing that. Because I think it's also important, as we've talked about earlier, this will be probably the third time that we've mentioned it here, is it is great to be able to read the room. You need to know how to read the room, be able to read your audience. But also, too, as a leader, you need to know how to own that room. Because that's who they are looking. That's who they are looking for guidance to bring them to the next level.
True. And as you just described it beautifully, John, that's already, like, it already covers what we were talking about earlier, leading with humanity, basically. It's you are being a human when you are in competition, because that's what human is all about. Humans are chasing goals. They're always in competition, if not with you, then with their own selves. I am a better version of myself. 10 years ago I was a different person, and now I'm a different person. Last year I was a different person, now I'm a totally different person. And I'm still the same body, same brain, but if you're not evolving, then you're not the real human. So your evolution, your improvement, your growth, your mindset change, this is all a part of you being human. Okay, so leading with humanity means competition is fine. You can compete, but at the same time you could be an empathetic leader, because empathy isn't just emotional intelligence, it is strategic intelligence as well. People follow leaders, as John said, they're there so you can guide them. So people follow leaders who make them feel seen, not just paid. And you can't fake that. You cannot throw in a, hey, how are you, before asking for a report and call it connection. This is very, very important that you understand that report has to be asked for, but it doesn't make it mild when you are going to say, hey, how did you have your weekend, how is your family, and asking all those questions. That doesn't make you an empathetic leader. Empathetic leader means when you receive something from your team member, piece of work or whatever assignment or whatever you gave that person, when you receive it back and you like it, you owe them that feedback. Feedback is not always improve, but it is also, hey, I love it, that is a brilliant idea, oh wow, I'm so glad you reached that idea. So that is also a part of you being an empathetic leader. Real empathy shows up through presence. That's why I use the three minutes connect habit. Like every day when you are reaching your office, make sure that you're connecting with everybody for 3 minutes. I used to have a principal who would, in the morning walkthroughs, he would, every single day, he would come into every single teacher's room. And we had 52 classrooms, by the way, on 3 floors. So you can imagine. And we didn't have a lift. And he was an elderly guy. So you can imagine it was taking an effort. But he did make an effort every single day without missing it. And sometimes he would he had a sticker sheet, so he would leave a sticker on the computer, on my computer, which will tell me that he was here. And it was like a smiling face or an affirmation or a nice quote to start your day or something like that. You have it in you, believe in yourself, something like that. I remember reading on his sticker that was left on my table or on my diary or on my computer, because I wasn't in the room. But that shows that he made an effort, he cared. And I can guarantee you that even the stickers were personalized. That what he left on my table wasn't repeated on any other table. Those were personalized messages. And I'm still amazed thinking about him. His name was Brian, and I want to tell you that. So I still want to, you know, one I want to call him and find out how much time did he actually spend, because we didn't have chat gpt, we didn't have at that time other things that are now helping us. So it must have taken around an hour or so every night to prepare that sticker sheet or to prepare that sticky notes that he hand wrote sometime. So remember, it didn't mean that he did not give me feedback when I was not the on the track. He did with the same honesty, with the same purity, with the same sincerity. He gave me the feedback. He said, "Her, I see a lot of potential, but you know what, you're distracted." And let's start with that point. What is distracting you right now? And I'm looking at him thinking, oh wow, nobody has ever asked me anything like that you know so if you are a team member and you're expecting all the good things from your leaders, please do remember, leaders are humans too, and they evolve and they change, and there are things that only they know, and they don't let you know about those things because they don't want you to lose motivation over things that they can handle. You see what I'm saying? So it's both ways basically. So you keep that in mind too, because I do remember the same leader, the same principal, he was under a lot of pressure because of something, and then it came to me, and I thought, I'm also responsible for being an empathetic human being. It doesn't have to be him all the time. So I took some donuts and I went into his room. He wasn't there. I left a note with the donuts. So sometimes you can do the same, reverse that to your leader, because they're humans. Remember, we're talking about leading with humanity. What we are really talking about here is humanity. It doesn't matter if you're leading or not leading. Keep humanity alive. John, anything? Because we are over time now and I want to wrap up. Anything you want to say as a closing statement?
Just quickly, if you are an empathetic leader, please embrace it. Please use it to your advantage every day. It is what people are going to look at you for as what you're known for. You are going to be able to retain people. You, by being an empathetic leader, whether you want to believe this or not, are going to guide them to their strength.
True.
So always look at being an empathetic leader as your greatest strength.
Thank you so much, John. That was a beautiful closing. Okay, viewers, empathy isn't about saving people, it's about seeing them. It's what turns authority into influence and hierarchy into humanity. If you lose empathy, you lose people. It's that simple. It's no rocket science. So here is my challenge to every leader listening. Tomorrow morning, before you check your emails, check your impact. Ask yourself, who needs to feel seen today? If you can't go to all 52 of your team members, no problem. Go to one, make a difference. That one act will do more for your culture than a dozen motivational quotes or pizza parties or barbecues ever could. John, thank you again for another raw, hilarious, and honest ride through leadership reality. And to everyone listening, this was Unboxed with SG, and we were talking about empathy. Leadership isn't about thinking outside the box, it is about feeling beyond it. Good night and take care.